Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Accelerate Microsoft Teams Adoption. Very interesting webinar and series of experts we have to talk to you today. But before we get underway, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which this webinar is hosted, obviously online. We have a range of speakers across Australia, and we'd like to pay our respects to the elders past, present and future on the land in which they are broadcasting from today. And I'd also like to welcome panelists and participants from New Zealand. It's good to have you all on board. My name is Mark Woodrow. I'm Office 365 evangelist for Engage Squared. We are a Microsoft Gold Partner, and I'll talk to you a bit about what we do in a sec. We have really 5 sections of what's happening today. We'll have some introductions. Then we have some tips and tricks on Teams adoption in a time when a lot of us have been working from home, and there's been an absolute explosion in Teams. So it's actually making sense of it in terms of adoption and good use. We have a live demo from LiveTiles. They've got a suite of things that really help local government, and we also have some resources we'd like to talk to you about in terms of what Microsoft have to offer and what we can offer in terms of some free consultations with Engage and LiveTiles. So to try and stay on from the end. So in terms of introduction, I'll just tell you a little bit about Engage Squared. We've been going 6 years. We have offices across Australia and New Zealand, although we've been working from home most of the time, like everyone, but people are coming out of the closet in Melbourne, and we're starting. As you can see, I'm in the Sydney office today, so we are occasionally getting to our offices, which is great. And Matt Dodd in Perth has been having a whale of a time, because obviously Perth is doing well, and our colleagues in New Zealand have navigated this COVID world very successfully. LiveTiles is one of our big partners. We're a change and adoption specialist through ProSci. All of our change and adoption team are qualified with the ProSci training. And I come from a Yammer background, used to be a customer success manager with Yammer, and these days I live in Teams. So we have a lot of local government clients, Randwick Council, City of Sydney, City of Hobart, and a number of the water authorities. We've also been doing work with Central Coast Council, for example, other councils in Victoria and Queensland. But as you can see, in terms of our portfolio, we do a whole range of work across the organisational enterprise space, if you like. We've got 4 pillars to our work. So one of them is change and adoption, which we will talk a lot about today. We also do some deep work in information management. We do a lot of work with Power Apps, and the Power Platform, which is a real growth area, and digital workspaces, so intranets, enterprise social, etc. And we do governance, security, and interesting people-led initiatives in terms of creative design and UX. So that's Engage Squared. But I'd now like to introduce Owen Brandt, who's the Vice President of LiveTiles, and I've known for years, and he can introduce LiveTiles, and then maybe Sean from Microsoft afterwards. Good to see you, Owen.
Great. Good morning, Mark, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'm joining from very wet and cold Sydney here. As Mark mentioned, I'm Owen Brandt. I'm the Senior Vice President for LiveTiles in Asia Pacific. A little bit about LiveTiles. We're Australia's fastest growing technology company, and we're laser focused on helping employees collaborate and communicate not just in Australia, but globally as well. With over 1,100 customers and a strategic alliance with Microsoft, I'm very, very pleased to have Sean on the line today as well. We're doing a huge amount of work with organizations like Engage Squared to help organizations adopt technology. There's amazing technology out there, and it's thanks to our partners like Engage Squared and LiveTiles who are helping organizations in both the public and the private sector adopt technology and even use this strange world we're living in right now around COVID to accelerate that appetite for change, appetite for innovation. We've seen councils across Australia that we're working with really look to try new things to drive that innovation agenda, and also to leverage their investments predominantly in the Microsoft M365 stack. Some observations that I'm seeing as we work with organizations large and small across the world is people are looking for this hybrid-based environments. We've got obviously companies that are coming back slowly to an office-based environment, but COVID's shown that organizations really can work from anywhere, and it's around how do you align that new methodology or attitude with making sure that staff are engaged, staff are connected to the organization, and still that the news and communications, policy changes, important notes and engagements are still kept in this sort of hybrid-based environment. We're seeing obviously tools like Microsoft Teams thrive, but we're also seeing Teams used beyond just a meeting tool. We're seeing Teams used as that hub for teamwork. And through some of our clients using Teams as that front door to an intranet, front door to that employee experience, and reducing the context switching or the complexity of organizations and councils' IT environments. And you'll see some of this demonstrated today by Elaine from the LiveTiles team. What we're also seeing is a big focus around how staff are doing, and from a mental wellness perspective, from a resilience perspective as well, and how some organizations and councils are using this environment to actually try new things, try and experiment, do things a bit differently. And we're also seeing some changes in personnel at councils that want to drive that more innovation, employee-obsessed experience. And so you'll see some of these themes today in the webinar. Again, I'll hand over to Sean Keating now from Microsoft, but thank you for joining this morning, and we hope you enjoy the webinar. Sean, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Owen. So I'm Sean Keating, your Microsoft Account Manager for Local Government. And I'd just really like to thank everyone for their support today. We've got over 60 attendees from Australia and New Zealand in local government attending today's session. So thank you all for giving up your time. And I guess, look, I love these webinars and I love doing these webinars because local gov's a really unique industry where we can all share our best practices. And you know, this is a great place for us to share our practices and what we're doing and what we're seeing that's working. Over the past sort of 6 months, I've seen a huge growth in teams in local gov. We're sort of have grown teams by 500% in local gov. And it's actually, you know, it's now the new way of working or the new norm. And I feel that COVID hasn't stopped us. You know, essential services in local gov, such as mental health, can still carry on through Teams. So it's a great platform to be able to provide essential services to your community. I see now that there's over 50% of all local gov workers are using Teams, which is a fantastic result because 6 months ago there would have been, you know, less than 10%. So huge growth and people embracing the technology, which is great. What I'm really excited to hear about today is listening to LiveTiles and Engage Squared. You know, two really great Microsoft Gold partners. And you know, for those councils out there about to start their Teams journey, I'd highly recommend that they use great partners like LiveTiles and Engage Squared because they're the experts in this industry. And you know, we've partnered with these partners today because they're doing some amazing things in local gov across Australia and New Zealand. I'm also looking forward to hearing how we can partner better together and utilise the Microsoft and partner-funded programs such as Teams workshops to achieve this success. And I'm hearing like a lot of councils have just sort of turned on Teams and haven't done their sort of compliance and regulations. And I feel when you engage a partner, such as these two great gold partners today, they can really help you with that journey and ensure you get your house in order before you ignite Teams. So yeah, thanks for that, and over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that that intro and your support for local councils. I know you're at one today, and it's a great great to have you on board. Now I'm going to hand over to Claudia. Claudia is our change and adoption lead for Engage Squared. She has run change programs for a number of organisations, large and small. She's very dynamic, and I think she can give you some guiding principles about what the people side of technology is in terms of adoption. So I'll hand over to you, Claudia.
Thanks, Mark, and hello everyone. Welcome today. So as Mark mentioned, my name is Claudia Piscatelli. I'm the head of Change and Adoption at Engage Squared. So I want to spend the next 10 minutes talking about adoption of Microsoft Teams and what you should be thinking about, and giving you some tips and examples of what this looks like in practice. So first, let's start by defining what we mean by adoption. I want to start by defining what adoption isn't. So adoption is not about using every feature and every part of a new piece of technology. So while using every feature and every part of a new piece of technology is a great outcome, research tells us that that's not a realistic goal to have. It's only about 2% of people. So if we think about that technology adoption curve, it's the left-hand side of people who fall in that innovator bucket that might help you achieve that goal. So the reason why I wanted to frame this up front is because some people get really passionate about Microsoft Teams, and for good reason. Teams is truly transformational and can act as the underlying current that helps you achieve some tangible and intangible changes in your organisation. So for councils, this could be anything from employees having better access to information and knowledge, so that's a tangible example, through to cultural norms that reduce silos, which is more of an intangible example. So what is adoption then? Adoption is deep, habitual, lasting actions and behaviours. It's when a new way of working becomes the norm. So essentially it's about forming new habits. So when we talk about it becoming the norm, what we mean is that over time, people get into a rhythm with things like Microsoft Teams. It becomes something automatic that they fire up and use every day, just like we do with our emails. So they embrace and accept the new change, and the technology really just melts into the background. That's when you know that it's working really well. So that's something that you want to aspire to in the state that you should be aiming for. But in order to do that, you need to understand your people, and you need to understand the needs of your organisation and how those needs might be changing because of COVID. So in essence, you need to put employee experience at the front and centre, and contextualise the introduction of Teams in ways that make sense to the different roles across council. So while the configuration of Teams and the Teams environment from a technical perspective is incredibly important, it's only half the story when we talk about adoption. The other half is thinking about and planning for behaviour change. Up to 40% of what we do every day is driven by our habits that are unconscious. So these are things that we're doing without actually needing to really think about it too hard. So if you've ever experienced that state of flow, when you are in the zone, you're getting really high quality work done, that's what we want to achieve. And that's what things like Microsoft Teams have been purposely built for. It's to reduce that context switching and to give you more opportunities to get into that state of flow. So this means, and apologies, Sean, don't get offended as a Microsoft person, but it means that kind of the technology is secondary and the behavior is first. So understanding the drivers behind what motivates your people and what's going to get them into that state of wanting to use Teams in this way, and introducing new ways of working that supports that is what's going to get you the outcomes that you're looking for. So in terms of top tips for lasting adoption, I've got 4 things that I want to share with you, and then I'll show you some examples of what this actually could look like in action. So the first one is to align the rollout of Teams with your organization's purpose. So if you've already got Teams established in your organization and you might be a few months down the track, it's not too late to do this. In fact, it's almost a good thing to kind of revive and re-establish a new change campaign that reminds people about what this platform is about and perhaps looks to correct some poor behaviours that people might be doing in Teams. So if you've ever fallen victim to being part of all company-wide updates, or people abusing the app mentions of a whole channel or a whole team, those are the type of things that you can start addressing if you've already established Teams and you're wanting to go back for a second time. So government at all levels, but perhaps more so at the local level, also has a very important role to play in society, and the capacity to deliver massive social impact. So even if it might seem a little over the top to talk about how Teams can transform and actually directly support achieving the purpose of your council or your organisation, it is important and it is really effective to put that at the heart of what you're communicating, and use that as a foundation for how you talk about the role of Teams in your organisation. So the purpose of your organisation and the changes that you're making, and how that's kind of the logical next step in what is the evolution of your council or your organisation. Second is to ladder your approach. So people need to be motivated and act in a certain way, but they also need to have the capability and the understanding of how to do so. So our job as change managers is to provide prompts to motivate and change and influence behaviour. So it's important to remember that Teams, and actually even Microsoft 365 as a whole, is an evergreen technology. So that means there'll always be new updates and new changes made to the platform. So that means that when you're introducing Teams, it's not a one and done thing. You need to ask yourself, what's reasonable to get our people to do based on their level of knowledge and their motivation and capability now? And what do we want to do 3, 6, 12 months down the track from here to keep that growth moving and keep it going? So through each of those change campaigns that you might run, you might seek to increase the capability across the organisation so that the next time round you can encourage your organisation, or even pockets of your organisation, to try something a little bit more difficult in Teams. So for example, you might start, if you're really new to introducing Teams, with some low-hanging fruits. So things like chat and meetings. Once people are comfortable with that, you might move on to teaching them about Teams etiquette. So how to not use and abuse channel message app mentions as an example, file sharing, version history, how they can integrate first party and third party applications into Teams. But it's important not to kind of jump to that integration of first and third party applications at the very beginning. Make sure you marry your activities with exactly where people are at their journey, so that they can take the first step and then the next step and so on in a way that's comfortable for them and that makes sense for their role. So it's important here to also talk about the fact that you'll definitely have people at different levels when you're introducing Teams. You'll have people that they get it, they're on it, they want to do something really interesting and a little bit more complex from the start. But you're also going to have people, and especially with council and local government, that have been there for a very long time and are stuck in their ways and not super interested in new technologies that might take a bit of time to get up to speed with it. So make sure when you're thinking about introducing Teams that you cater to all those different working styles. That's a really great way to see immediate success and also to set you up for long term. Third, listen to what's being said and also what's not being said. So make sure you sense check the noise that's happening across your organization. If you have pockets of your council that are not very interested in using something like Microsoft Teams, for them it feels like just another application that they need to learn, make sure you think about and kind of sense check what that's about. People will be loud about all sorts of things, especially when new technology is introduced. So it's up to us to find out what's behind that. It could be fear, it could be lack of knowledge, it could be lack of engagement with them about what this change actually means. So understand that noise and bring that into your change efforts. That's a great way really to live empathy and really connect with your staff's lived experience, especially while there's things like COVID going around and there's major changes to how we work and operate. And lastly, celebrate success and give credit. So the narrative that you help orchestrate can set off all different types of amazing signals in people's brains that either makes them want to know more or makes them want to run in the opposite direction to what you're doing. So because Teams is a tool built for human connection, there are probably some fantastic stories in your organization, even if you've only got a small number of people in your organization that are using it, that you'll be able to mine and share with the rest of the business. So using those stories is a fantastic way to demonstrate the direct relationship for how this technology enables your people to live the purpose and vision of your organization as well. So to create social impact, whether that's, virtually through healthy aging classes. My husband actually works for a local council here in Victoria and has been organising healthy aging classes for seniors, or helping employees to collaborate more efficiently together. Make sure you look for those stories and share that success. No one really cares about what you as a technology team is doing, but they care about hearing what their colleagues are doing. So let your success and your initiative be shone through the voice of others. So I want to quickly wrap up by talking about what this looks like in action. When you're thinking about kind of laddering your approach and making sure that you've got sustained adoption of Teams, there are plenty of different things that you can do. So I'm just going to share 3 quick examples of what this could look like in action. The first is establishing and maintaining a champions community. So ideally, this should include a mix of leaders at all levels of seniority and also people that aren't people leaders, that aren't managers, that have different roles across the business. Make sure that you engage them. It doesn't have to be that often, even once a month for a 30 or 45-minute call to show them something new in Microsoft Teams, show them what's coming up, what they can expect on the roadmap to get them excited about what's next, and really encourage that growth mindset, and then let them take that knowledge away and be an extension of your change team and let them permeate that knowledge with their colleagues. Second, creating self-service training materials. So thinking about using bite-sized videos, Microsoft has some fantastic resources that you can use in your organization to kind of help facilitate or create your self-service hub, knowledge hub. So things like learning pathways from Microsoft, if you haven't heard of that before, definitely reach out to us or talk to Sean and we can give you some more information about that, so that from an administrative perspective, it's not too much of a burden for you to update that content. A lot of it has been pre-developed by Microsoft, so it's really just up to you to deploy that into your environment. And lastly, think about gamifying your change. So people love free stuff. People love competition. So thinking about how you can infuse that into your change campaign, whether you get people to share, the best kind of Teams setup, or do a really cool webinar or meeting on Teams and give them some free merch. Or give them some recognition, even if it's in their performance review with their manager. Something that gamifies the change is really effective as well at driving adoption. What I want to leave you with is that adoption takes time and habits take a lot of time to change. So whatever you do, make sure it's not a one and done thing. Make sure you continually evolve and mature your approach over time. Thanks, Mark.
That's great, Claudia. And I know that that listening part is really important, because there is a lot of noise with the explosion of teams, and certainly having leaders be listening and show some leadership by being interested, but not necessarily interesting in teams, and your communication platforms is super important to sort of give some endorsement to those to that sort of that incremental change that you're encouraging. So that's really great. And I know that in terms of games, this is part of something in Teams that I know that LiveTiles have a really interesting game and to help with adoption. So we must talk about that as well. So without further ado, Elaine, would you like to talk just in more detail about LiveTiles and what you have to offer under the hood?
Yeah, sure, guys. So my name, just a quick intro before I get started with the demonstration. So my name's Elaine White. So I manage the pre-sales team here in the APAC region. Traditionally work with the great partners like Engage Squared around establishing our platform for our clients, really aligning our key features with some of the requirements that you may have. So today I'll really be talking about some of the features that we offer within the traditional environment, so the intranets, and then I'll move across into what we're actually seeing in Teams and some of the features that we offer there. Lastly, I will cover the Teams planning, so the Teams game, which is a really interactive game. We started it, I believe, at the beginning of the year, once I believe, well, actually before COVID hit, and it's quite a cool game to actually go through and build out these Teams experiences. So to kick off, really, I'd like to start the journey about LiveTiles with our traditional features that we have, which is the traditional intranet, which is what you're seeing on the screen. Now, our environment is extremely contextual, so it really is a personalized experience that you can actually leverage the user's profile and bits of information that we understand about the user to target not just news communications, but actually widgets and bits of information to the users. We have this omnipresent experience just down the side of the panel here that you see, and this is called LiveTiles Everywhere. Throughout this demonstration, what you'll find is that this will follow me through my environment. So this will follow me through the internet experience as well as Microsoft Teams. And what it really is really bringing the intranet or the key tools and features that that the user needs to where they actually want to work. So I believe Claudia mentioned it earlier. We really want to stop people from actually switching contexts and stop them from actually moving outside of Teams to receive news and information, as well as potentially tasks and so on from disparate applications. This will actually do it for you, and we have a number of organizations that actually have adopted it and are doing some pretty cool things, which I will talk about as well. So our experience here, as I mentioned earlier, is very contextual, it's very personalized, and I'll just start off just by talking about how we create this experience. Now, it really is based on the user profile, and we really encourage and empower your users to add in additional information about themselves. Now, we do this through a number of ways. One is actually a bot that will go out there and reach out to the users, or we can do things like this, which is a gamified approach where we're showing the user profile, but also encouraging them to add in additional information. At the very top of the page, you'll see the person's photo. You also see a percentage score, which is pretty cool. It's really given them, a little bit of encouragement to add in additional information. We can also, down the bottom here, include bits of the user profile that's actually missing or that they have added into the environment. And we allow the users to actually interact with this and add in additional information. Now, the way that we do it is actually through this nice little pop-up. You can actually classify information, not just by free text, which is what you have here as a job title, but we also have the ability to add in drop-down menus. So users are actually able to select select from predefined values from here. The great thing about this is not only can they actually select this and then submit it, we can also have approvals over the top of it. So any information that you add into this experience that could flow into the user profile can be pushed into an approval process, which is quite powerful. Additionally to that is we have validation on top of this. So let's just say that we have a user's phone number that could potentially be missing. We can use that information. We can also define the type of information that we'd like back. So that the pattern of the phone number, so to speak. So let's say that you are located in Melbourne, but we're looking for a mobile phone number. We can actually classify that the mobile phone number that we're expecting should be +61 or 04. If the user enters in anything else other than that, they won't receive the save button, which is very, very powerful. Again, we also have the last item here that I want to talk about, which is really all about cascading fields. So this is not only selecting a location like Melbourne, we can also define the postcode, so the type of postcode that you like. So instead of 20, like in Sydney, it could actually start with a 3. So once users have entered this in and everything's all approved, you can imagine, you know, the personalized experience that we can actually push on to users. Now, I mentioned earlier that this little bar will actually guide us through the entire environment. And to showcase that, I'm just going to quickly click on one of our policies and procedures, which is down the bottom here. I'll click on this and you'll notice that I'll actually navigate into the exact same window, but a new area. This everywhere bar will actually follow me to it, but not only that, you'll notice on the side, on the right hand side of this page as it loads, users will also receive a little bit more information about this particular policy. Now, what we're actually seeing here on this page is a few of our information lifecycle management solutions that we have within the platform. Now, if you noticed, we have revision dates on all of the content in here, and this is actually telling me that this page is actually up for revision. We also have the ability to ask users to confirm that they've read and understood information, which is very, very powerful. This means that if you do want to run a compliance report, you can certainly do this within the back end of our platform. You can see not only who has seen these items, but who has confirmed that they've read them, and also potentially if you have multiple versions, what version have they read? Now, I'll quickly flick in to the LiveTiles, I would say, Teams experience, which is just on this page here. Now, opening it up, you'll notice you'll open up into the Teams experience, but what we're showcasing here is that the internet is really following us into this experience. Now, we often have tried to build out these environments. I'm sure Claudia and the team can attest to this. Often when you do release it, you'll find that adoption is really great, but you'll also find that people just actually actually go back to the applications that they're used to working in. And right now, everyone's moving into Teams. So this means that potentially they could be missing out on news and information that's been published to the intranet. The LiveTiles Everywhere bar will actually bring the internet to them. And right now, you're actually seeing what this actually looks like in this demo environment. Scrolling down the page on my welcome area, you'll notice I'll be receiving news and information from the intranet. So this is a little bit of news that's coming through from one of my channels. And we do have the ability to push out news and communications to channels to users and allow them to subscribe to those channels. But not only that, we can also bring in external information. So this is information actually coming from the New York Times, which is all very much about election day. Now, down the bottom here, we have two different news channels as well coming from the SharePoint experience. So right now you can actually see that we've got some news items coming from the internet here, as well as another article that I've been pushed out all about our LiveTiles Reach, which is a mobile application. Clicking on these, it'll just launch into a new window and it'll actually give me this content relatively quickly. It'll give me all the information I'll actually need to actually view this item. And then you simply just go back into the Teams area. The really good thing about this is we can also push out alerts and notifications to users through this area. So right now you'll see that you are seeing alerts as well as events. Again, this is all events that has been pushed in from the intranet into this experience. Clicking on one of these items, again, will actually flick into the events area that we do have within the LiveTiles stack. Once it loads, you'll be able to see, not only can you see the events and the actual event, you'll actually be able to see a little bit more information when we also include on every single one of our events the ability to register to these events. Once this loads, you'll notice not only can you actually receive this, the ability to register down the bottom here, you can also download all of the responses, as in who was actually registered. We can also have likes, comments, and so on turned on. Flicking back to the everywhere environment, and I'm just scrolling down the page, you can actually bring in a little bit more information, times, locations, and so on. Now, I'm going to flick over to this next experience here, which is the LiveTiles dashboard. But think of it as your user's dashboard. You're able to go in here and see what's going on within your day. So right now, not only are we just bringing in news and communications, we're also bringing in emails. So from here, users are actually able to see all the emails in this one area. You can also scroll your emails just by clicking on this, and you'll be able to simply click on one of these items to go to one of the tasks or notifications that you do have. We can also bring in the user's contacts. So if you have a look here, you can actually bring in all the people that we have within this person's contacts list, as well as the schedule, which is the user's calendar items. So they'll be able to see all of the meeting requests and so on through here. Scrolling down, we also will be able to bring in things that's going on around the person's environment. Now, these are a whole bunch of recent files that they've accessed. So me as Herb, who's logged in, I can see all of my recent files. Not only that, I can bring in tasks. Now, I'm just going to pause a little bit here and just explain tasks to you, because a lot of our clients are doing something quite good here, and I believe it is quite powerful. Think about here, not only bringing in tasks from the Microsoft experience, but you can leverage our integration options, so webhooks and APIs, to actually bring in tasks from external applications. A lot of the times we've seen ServiceNow being brought in. It could be incidents and tasks, as well as any HCM type of application, including Cloud, Oracle HCM. You'll also look at SAP, and the last one is Workday. But obviously, if there is any modern ways to integrate with these external applications, we can certainly do it and bring it into this one area. We also have the ability to bring in sites. Now, these are all of the trending sites that's going on around this particular user. So not only do I have access to it, but if there's any bits of movement on that site with people adding in new information, you can showcase it here. And the last one's really notebooks, and these are notebooks I have access to. This is all about the OneNote experience. The last one I just want to talk about before I move on from this section is the trending documents. Now, again, this is actually leveraging the Microsoft's powerful graph in the back end, and we're looking at all of the documents that not only do I have access to, but there's been a lot of movement on those documents. Potentially, I've been added into a comment where there's a task and so on. You can see all of these from this particular area. I'll move into the next area here, which is all about the service menu. Now, this is all about pushing links to end users, but not only are we pushing them to users, we're targeted to them based off the user profile. So this could be links pushed out to people who are in the human resources department. They may see a subset of links, and if you have human resources added into your profile, you will be only able to see those links, whereas people from IT may see additional links on top of that. Right now, as an administrator, I can see all of these links through here. But the good thing about that is not only can we search it, we can also click on the various categories that we've defined for these links. The next item down the bottom here is all about my links. So this is allowing the users or empowering the users to create their own links. So from here, an end user can click on edit, and then they can click on add personal link. You can add a name for that particular link, a URL, a description, a category. So we can actually define categories in the back end for you if you like. And then allow them to either open in a new window, open in place, and you can add an image to allow the users to really easily identify that particular item. Okay, I showed you the policies and procedures in the internet experience, but why can't they be shown to users within Microsoft Teams or any other application? The LiveTiles Everywhere platform is actually bringing it to the users through here, which is quite powerful. You can see the must-reads, which are the mandatory items for me to read, but you can also see the relevant ones. So these are ones that not necessarily I must read and must check a box to say, yes, I've read and understood, but ones that I should be aware about within the environment. Just one of the last items I just want to quickly touch on is just this one here. And this is alerts. So not only can we push in, I would say, notifications. Yeah, not only can we push in notifications from disparate systems into the Teams experience, but we can also give them push notifications. So this will be nice little indicators at the top, activity items within here as well, and the ability to actually push notifications to their mobile phones. The last one I just want to quickly touch on before I hand back over to Mark is the ability to actually provision Teams. So we've shown you how we can bring the internet into the Teams experience, but what about creating a Teams experience for you? Now from here, we can actually allow users to self-service and create their own teams. By doing that, you click on add, and the user will be able to see a number of teams that they have the permissions to actually go through and create. From here, you can add in metadata, and the metadata is quite powerful because you can actually put some governance rules over the top and move that team from a work in progress through to an archive team using the LiveTiles provisioning and information lifecycle management system. I'll quickly just type in a test here, and then I'll just quickly click on next. But the items that will really guide you through that experience is the start, end, as well as the revision date. Clicking on next, we have the ability to add in a whole bunch of owners as well as external guests if you wish. And the last one, when you click on create, we also check for duplicates. So duplicated teams, ensuring that you only have the one team that is fit for purpose and you don't have multiple teams that people are confused. So look, I'll just pause for a moment here and I will hand it back over to Mark.
Thanks, Alan.
No problem.
That was, I know that was very cut down. Those that want to join our sort of our 2-hour consultation can get a bit more of a deep dive. I think that the governance thing is certainly something that's really useful. You just explained at the end, and we now are going to open up to a few questions. If you'd like, anyone online would like to put something in the chat, then by all means do so. But I'm intrigued with your Everywhere bar. It begs the question to me: what is the role now of intranets in the modern workplace in terms of if councils are doing everything in Teams? Is there a role for the intranet? What do the people here think?
Yeah. Yeah, I can jump in. Look, I think there'll always be a role for the intranet. I think the traditional features of the intranet are still going to be there, but where people actually access it from is actually evolving. So I believe, the Teams experience, maybe potentially, servicing the intranet in different applications like Outlook and so on, will probably be the next step or the next evolution of the intranet. But I do believe that some of the traditional features will stay.
What about you, Sean? Is Microsoft Teams going to just envelope the whole suite, or what's the plan?
Well, yeah. Look, I'm just speaking from my own example, and look, I'm finding Microsoft Teams really sticky. Like I'm actually using Teams now more than I'm using Outlook. Like I sort of don't use my Outlook that much, and I'm finding, I don't know, like productivity is actually really good with Teams because I could just write short, sharp, sort of chat without the whole formality of an email and get my point across. And yeah, I'm finding, Teams is becoming more and more embedded, and using it more and more in day-to-day work.
Cool. And I want to sort of also want to ask. We've obviously got office workers in council chambers. I wonder what people have seen in terms of connecting more people on the front line out sort of delivering services for councils and health organisations. What have people seen the sort of? Is there any tips, Claudia, in terms of doing that? You've worked at the Department of Health before. I wonder if you've seen tips for connecting frontline workers that don't sit in front of a computer for a lot of the day.
Yeah, so I guess that's one of the benefit of Teams, right? Is that typical saying of anywhere, any device. But if you think about the fact that I can have my phone as a first line employee, or I can be using a tablet, and I can still participate in meetings, I can still work on documents or get the information I need regardless of the device I'm on, is really powerful. Again, I think it comes down to how that message is communicated across the organisation to actually tell first line workers, or any workers really, what the purpose of going into Teams is. Because if there isn't a strong why, and there isn't a strong reason for me, as particularly for government employees and people that are on the ground working with vulnerable members of the community, or literally serving people out there, going into a piece of technology has to have a compelling reason for them. So I think it's around doing that. And there's a question that's been asked in the chat, and I think it kind of speaks to this as well. It's that which tool when conversation. So getting people to understand when they would go to the intranet versus when they would go into something like Teams versus when they would go into something like Outlook for their email. So if you think about all the things that you can build on with Teams, even having crisis communication in there, swapping shifts, integrating shifts into Teams, that's the power. So it's, again, it comes to contextualizing the use of Teams for different roles, because the way a knowledge worker uses Teams is going to be completely different to someone who's a clinician or to someone who's working in the field.
Very good.
Yeah, just to that point regarding field workers, like, I think it's really important that we embrace Teams for field workers, because it means that we can control the data, and when that employee leaves, that that if it's not sort of using other shadow IT like WhatsApp messages and all the rest, that they can actually basically take on their phone once they leave the organisation. Like, I think the governance around Teams is really good, because you can, as I said, control once an employee leaves, control what happens with the data.
And probably something that I'd add to that is around make sure the content is targeted and relevant. I think to Claudia's point, people are getting so much notifications, so many emails right now, and you start to lose that context and that relevance and that engagement with your staff. So when you're creating content, news, policies, announcements from council leaders, is around, well, what are we trying to achieve from this communication, and how is it relevant for that first line worker or that knowledge worker, that person in the council chambers, as opposed to the person out fixing park benches or doing the garbage collection. So it's around the right content for the right person at the right time through the right channel or device. Yeah,
and just thinking as well, like hearing what you're saying, Owen, and also Sean, and my own experience working for Victorian government, it's quite often that people that are not in HQ or in the head office, they're more technically savvy, and they're the ones that will typically rely on technology more than people that are in the office. And there's often this cultural barrier between whatever head office and the knowledge workers are telling us. So really that voice of the people that are on the ground can be lost. But with something like Microsoft Teams, that can be brought back in. So it's a much more equal playing field across the different roles within a council or any type of government, really.
Very good. Just a quick one on terms of how do we navigate between Outlook and Teams, or too many emails? Anyone got some tips about now we're sort of a lot of us are living more in Teams, or that's been ramped up by organisations, how to balance out emails versus Teams and chat?
I can take that one, if you like.
Go for it.
So again, bad habits, it's only as good as the technology is only as good as the people that use it. So it's establishing those ground rules from the start. And I think the Teams game from LiveTiles is a fantastic way to open up that conversation. I've actually used it with my team in Engage Squared, because even though we're quite advanced users of Teams, we got to a point where the structure of our team wasn't really making sense for where we were. And we found ourselves shifting into chat, and conversations that probably should have been in a channel happening in chat, because it's easy, it's instantaneous. Okay. It just feels a little bit more like email, and we'll gravitate to the things that feel natural to us, that feel kind of like email. That's the issue with email, is it's so damn easy to use. So we'll keep using that. So I think having space to actually have those conversations and say, well, what are we actually going to still use email for? And what are we going to use Teams for? And even within Teams, what are we going to use chats for versus what are we going to use channels for? And establishing those ground rules and that etiquette will start to hopefully reduce some of those emails that you're getting, and be, I guess, not aggressive, but kind of pull people up on it. If you see people reverting back to email, just, there's fantastic features like forwarding an email to a channel to say, hey, just going to move this conversation into Teams, nudge them back in.
Yeah, that's a good one, Claudia. Now, I'm conscious of everyone's time. And I do, we starting to get a few other questions about the role of telephone systems and chat, and obviously councils and organisations have some interesting work to do in terms of what sort of technology landscape they're sort of setting up for next year. I wonder if we can sort of talk through some of the resources that we have on offer, and Microsoft do. So we have a suite of client engagements that Microsoft are actually paying, will pay partners to deliver. There's actually two workshops I want to point out to the audience today. One has slightly been rebranded lately, which is Secure Work from Anywhere workshop, which is 2 days. We also have, we've been talking about Teams meetings. We have one which Claudia often delivers, which is Teams meetings and use of Teams meeting rooms, and that whole landscape of how to run successful meetings. If you're interested as a council or organisation to take advantage of some of the workshops on offer from Microsoft and check your eligibility, what I suggest you do is get in touch with your Microsoft account manager. And obviously we've got Sean on the call today, so he's an obvious point of call. That Microsoft account manager will actually nominate you for the workshops and a potential partner. If you come to us at Engage Squared, we can also take your expression of interest and take that to Microsoft. So these are accelerator workshops that are funded by Microsoft. There's a couple of things for you to complete. The Secure Work from Anywhere workshop involves looking at your work from anywhere scenarios, and then does a full immersion experience. And then you can actually develop in that workshop an implementation plan, and most important, you may have all gathered from today the importance of adoption, and therefore look at an adoption plan and the next steps of some of the things that Claudia's been alluding to. The next one is a one-day one where it's an audit and assessment of your current meeting practices, and then looking at how the modern meeting experience can be used. Obviously, we're using Teams live events, which is a different experience to a Teams meeting, for example, today. And same thing, in that one day, you can actually build out a plan. So there's 2 of the workshops. There is actually 4 workshops in total, and we will actually we'll put the link in the it's just been put in the side on queue. Thank you, Lauren. If you go to the side chat, you can actually click our Cloud Accelerator workshops, and you can get a full list there, and with a lot of the detail. There is another option that I'd like to put out to just for the audience today, and your friends in councils that you can pass this on to, or those listening to the recording afterwards. We're happy to do a longer version, a consultation with you for a couple of hours, where we can take some of the guidance of working from anywhere in a smart way. We actually have a guide that's available on our website to this, but we actually will do that in a workshop setting. We can talk to you about high-performing teams. I think it's really important when you actually look at Teams, the tool, as to what's actually best practice and how many people you need, and how teams will actually interact to be effective. That's interesting guidance in terms of how to do things successfully. As we've talked about today, the employee experience is at the heart, I think, of anyone that does these things successfully. Invariably puts the employee experience as being at the center, not the technology roadmap. And there's the danger, is we've all seen it, where a lot of investment goes into rolling out a new technology, where it actually it falls flat. And there is more that we actually we'd love to show you the game and work with you in terms of the Teams game, and seeing some of the other things from LiveTiles. There is one we haven't covered today, like which is a free wellbeing check produced called Vibe, and I recommend that you actually look at that, especially in this current environment. I think it's a really good thing to have things where you can check in about people's well-being. If you'd like to book one of those, come back to us and Engage Squared. You can come back to me. In Australia, we've also got Tom Hiscott, our director online here. You can also, if you know Tom, you can get in touch with Tom. And those of you in New Zealand, do talk to Jason, and he'd love to help set up a consultation with your council, or we can help facilitate the process of getting the Microsoft workshops up and running, depending on where you are in your roadmap in terms of meetings or working from anywhere, etc. I normally like to finish up by giving everyone a closing comment, Q&A style, but that's not related to the US election, so that's the only proviso. Be ready, panel, for your last closing comments and any tips you've got for people. And I will say that we are going to send out, for those, thanks for attending, we will send a copy of this information and deck to those that have registered, and we'll also make the recording available for those if you want to pass on to friends and colleagues in your organisation or your council. So if I can go to Elaine, have you got any final thing that it doesn't involve the US election or rugby league from last night?
Look, I probably don't want to talk about both. It was a miserable evening for me.
Anything, Claudia, that you passing comment that you want to give as a suggestion for people?
I'd probably say, remember, it sounds cheesy, but Rome wasn't built in a day. So have your roadmap and have an idea of where you want to take teams, but take it one step at a time.
Very good.
Sorry, I do have one last thing to add. With the Teams game, Owen has actually pushed out a link to it. Please review it. And if you guys are interested, please reach out to Mark and the team, as well as the guys from LiveTiles, and we're more than happy to run one of those free workshops with you guys. Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I've got one thing to say too. So yeah, look, thanks to the two partners today for investing in local gov industry, and look, I really appreciate LiveTiles and Engage Squared for their investment. So thank you very much for organising today. I see on the chat that there's some questions around using Teams calling or like soft phones. So yeah, look, that's become a big trend at the moment in local gov. We've got numerous councils using Teams for replacing their PBX telephony systems. So yeah, reach out to me and I can share the stories of what we're doing in other local gov with Teams telephony. So thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, Sean. That's awesome, and thanks everyone for participating. And you're all doing great work in councils, and obviously we're hoping to all be well and truly opened up for Christmas. So thanks for all the great work you do, and do keep in touch, and we look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.